Good morning, everybody, all your third graders in West Dedham, which is going to be a day of 1868 today, and we will welcome you. I want to thank the Westwood Media Center for making this possible to do it both in your school and also through YouTube. But we're going to get on today to try to recreate the day that we would have had at the Fisher School. My name is Master Donahue. All the men teachers were called Master. And all the women teachers were called Mistress. So be sure to call your teacher by Mistress, whatever her last name is. The first thing we do in the day is we sing an old song that's been around for a long time called America. So if we could all just sing it together. My voice isn't that great, but let's all join together. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where our fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring. 1868, it wasn't that long ago when we weren't a free country. And we're going to study today, as everybody in 1868 did, how we became our own country. Thought of the day, we always start the day off by saying, let's think about something that's important. So the thought today is, do unto others as you would want others to do unto you. Treat other people the way you would like to be treated. We're now going to take a walk around what is in your classroom today for you to look at when you're curious, during breaks, during recess, during other things. So we're going to just tell you what's there so you can take advantage of it. Thank you. First off, around the classroom today, you're going to be looking at the following things. Take advantage of it. This is a picture of George Washington. We're going to be talking about George later today. He was our first general when we fought the British. He came through Westwood and sat down and had lunch at a pub in Islington. He went on, we're going to talk about him later, and he became our first president. This is later, just a few years ago. This is our famous Abraham Lincoln, our president. We're going to talk about him too. So we're going to look at periods of history, mostly during the Revolution, in the old colonial days, and we're going to be, these are two important people, the leaders of our country. Second, around the room will be a picture. This is a picture of what it looked like in school. If you notice, all the kids are scattered around the classroom. They had blackboards all around the classroom because in West Dedham, the second graders were taught by the fourth graders. And the fourth graders were taught by the sixth graders, and the teachers oversaw everybody. So the schools were very small, and the desks were near the windows because there was no lights, no electricity. That's where you get your light. And in the middle of the school was a big stove. And as you kids came to school in the winter, your job was to pick up wood to put in the stove so you had it heated. This is the flag. Looks a little different from our flag today. This is our first flag. 13 stars. Because when we started the country with the meeting in Philadelphia before we became a country, before the Revolution, we started a flag. Betsy Ross made it, 13 stars, 13 colonies. That's how we get started. New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. Those were the first colonies that came together in Philadelphia to talk about becoming an independent country. When they were in Philadelphia, we'll talk about how the revolution started, but this was something they all signed, and it was sent to the King of England, Declaration of our Independence. If you look at the bottom of it, this will be in your classroom. It's signed by, very large, Johnny Hancock, Massachusetts, and I'm sure I signed it very big so the king could read it. On here is Ben Franklin. We'll talk about him. John and Sam Adams from Massachusetts. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. They all signed this document that declared we weren't free yet, but we're declaring our independence. This is a book on the side. This was written by Benjamin Franklin. We're going to talk about him later today. He grew up in Boston as a young kid. This is a book of his stories of living in Boston as a young kid and why he decided to become a printer. College was only for rich people, but he learned to be a printer, became one of our greatest scientists. It was key in the American Revolution, getting help from France. There's a couple of maps. This is a map of historic Westwood, just taken from a balloon. Somebody got up there and carved it, and there's little numbers of all these locations so you can study early Westwood. And over here, this is another map. That in the sidelines, they have historic things in Westwood that you can identify throughout our town of West Dedham. This is something you might want to take a look at. It's a picture, and you look through here, and it's called a stereopica. People didn't have advanced things, and that you would study things here, pictures of France and China, places way beyond West Dedham, but it would be a way to sit and look and study what other places looked like. Here are some books that are on the tables around the classroom. These were written by former third grade classes. They took pictures and they wanted to share this with you, so you can go through these books with the stories and articles written by people, third graders who had been here. Later today, you're going to study like it was 1868. One thing you're going to be doing is reading. The actual book that was there will be here. This is the book you'll be using. It's just a part of it. But you'll get to see what first, second, third, fifth graders, what kind of books they had at that time. And then another book, this is the mathematics book. It's basically practical inductive method. Mathematics that teaches you, if you're a farmer or something, how do you use mathematics? This is the little book you'll be using. We'll talk about the man who wrote this book that was used all throughout the United States and the world, Warren Colburn, who lived in West Dedham. Here we have the Dunce Cap. Hopefully, not too many of you will need this. Every once in a while, there's somebody in school who talks when the teacher's trying to talk. They're late for school, or they climb up on the trees when they're not. So this is what you do: is you get the Dunce Cap on, you go over and sit in the corner for a little while. So during the day, we'll pretend you did something wrong, just so you get the chance to have the Dunce Cap on. We also have around the classroom artwork. Art was a big thing. It wasn't in West Dedham, but in Paris. So we have a lot of beautiful paintings that were painted in the 1860s in Paris by people like Monet, Degas. So those are for you to explore art in the 1868, except for this one piece. Some of these famous French artists, impressionist painters, came to Boston, and they painted people and buildings, and they got sick of that. And so one of them came out and wanted to get out to nature. And this is a painting that he painted called the Brook in Midfield. And it is now, 153 years later, at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. This painting is still there. And so it's a picture of our community, Midfield, at this time. Also, this is something we try not to have you throw around too much, but those of you that are baseball players, this is the baseballs that we used in the 1860s. This is a baseball 1850, 1860, 1870, and this is today's baseball. You can hold them, pick them up, feel them. They're very, very different. But baseball was one of our sports at that time. It came from a sport in England called hurling. Two other things on our table here. This is a slate. In 1868, we didn't have paper. It was too expensive. So you had a slate board, and you had chalk, and you did your mathematics on this. You did the problem, you wiped it off. So we're going to practice our mathematics with a slate board. Secondly, when we did our writing, we didn't have advanced pens and all. We had a quill pen. This is a quill pen. You'll be practicing with this. You dip it into the ink, and you write in your little books. And this was the next thing called a steel tip pen. Again, you dipped it in the ink well, and you did it. Be very careful as we pass out the ink, because it can tip or spread. Be very, very delicate, tipping it in. writing it, blot it. So that is one of the other items you'll be using later in your penmanship work. So that's an overview of what's in your classroom today. So take advantage of seeing these things, touching them, learning about it, and we'll pick up in a little while. Thank you.